Welcome to another episode of Due Diligence, a real estate podcast. And we're live once again here in quarantine in our North Atlanta studios. And I'm here with my fit and younger than ever looking colleague, Lee Taylor.
That's me.
How you doing?
I'm fantastic.
Doing all right,
it's
buddy?
been a gorgeous day in Atlanta.
It has been a gorgeous day. And it's really been a gorgeous couple of weeks.
It has been. Well, we've had some beautiful rain. We needed it. But it's been a great week to get out in the spring. I mean, it just feels like beautiful spring weather. It's been rather balmy.
Yeah.
Is that the right word?
Balmy. Yeah.
Balmy.
It's been quite... The pollen count's been quite high.
Well, welcome to Georgia.
That's right.
That's what we do.
You can either live with it for 60 days a year, or you're gonna have to get out.
I think it's lessened so much, but it comes in as each plant and each tree kind of gives off its nastiness. It's a week by week thing you're fighting.
Well, speaking of nasty, we're here in the midst of coronavirus once again here on the Due Diligence Real Estate Podcast, and I'm Atlanta real estate expert Jason Wieloch. This is my colleague Lee Taylor. As I mentioned, we are both with the Wieloch Group at Compass. For those of you first listening in, and our goal each week is to bring relevant real estate news, irrelevant fun news, and pretty much keep you informed at this point beyond real estate, and updating you economically on what's happening during this coronavirus crisis. And we've got a ton of great content archived. We've got interviews that are supplements to the podcast. We've got posted with really interesting people. More to come in the coming weeks as well. And today, we're going to really make this our first sort of interactive show.
We get some Q&A. Jason, we've done, between the two of us, 32 years of real estate experience in Georgia.
Yeah, I'm 11 years on April 27th.
Yeah. April 1st, 2004 is when I started full-time back again after that 99 run. Yep. Motivated. First listing lead I got was in Pittsburgh. I already had 2 listings on the market April 1st, 2004. Condo and an acre of land in Cumming. And then somebody said, hey, you got your license back. Why don't you go look at this thing over in Pittsburgh for me? And I've been going back ever since.
You're quite the veteran, sir. You were a charter member of Keller Williams, one of the first 29 Keller Williams agents in Atlanta. And now there's like 10 or 15,000.
Yeah.
And Compass is doing, we're now at Compass. We're 500 strong in the mere 18 months.
Yeah. Very productive agents on
we
average.
Are very productive. Our team is as well. And in this time, real estate or transacting, I can't talk today for some reason. Transacting real estate is not the number one priority for us. It is to bring and deliver information to people that can help them stay informed, help those that need or want to make a move in a safe manner.
Let's face what the number one priority is, Jason. Survival, staying in business, doing what we do best in a market that's moving in a way that we've never experienced before. We want to do everything we can to stay in business and be motivated about our business. But that's ultimately just like any other guide. Mike Del Prete's guide to staying in business in coronavirus. Step 1, survive. And that's what we're doing with all the knowledge we usually give out. Now we've got cool new tools like this broadcasting of the podcast and taking apart some of the content we do and spreading it around. Giving our clients Zoom interviews and face-to-faces that we haven't done before.
All kinds of virtual,
that's what we're doing to take survival to the next level of thriving and succeeding. So that's where we are.
Well, here's what we're going to do today, folks. We're going to talk a little bit about what's happening in the state of Georgia. Georgia is in the news as much as any state right now, other than the New York area this week, because Governor Kemp has made some executive decisions that go into effect. Governor Brian
Kemp. Hi, I'm Governor Brian Kemp.
That's right, on Friday.
That's pretty good, right?
And so let's start there. We have an interesting announcement this week that at the end of the week, there are certain businesses that will be reopening, and of those, probably the most important and detrimental to the economy is bowling alleys.
There's about 75, 80 bowling alleys in Georgia. And what is expected is a rather lackluster turnout.
Right.
Nobody wants to go grab other people's balls with 3 holes in them. You know what I mean? I mean, how can you clean those things?
Yeah.
Imagine. I mean, just that start there, Jason.
Such imagery.
Unless you have your own ball.
Well, the good news is you can probably have your own private bowling alley without renting it out this weekend.
Yeah, that'd be rather slick.
Well, so bowling alleys are included. Gyms were interestingly included, which traditionally are central cesspools of germ and disease spread. Whenever the winter season comes, coronavirus or not, generally that's where people can get sick. So I thought that one was really interesting. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of disagreement. And then there was salons, nail salons, just various things like that. So
tattoo parlors, body art parlors,
essential
adult lifestyle accessory shops.
Right.
Now, Diamond Dallas Page, my friend, he's got the Performance Center, 7,500 square feet over in Concord Road in Smyrna. He is not reopening the Performance Center doing classes. He just thinks it's still not time yet. So it's a choice of each business owner.
And here's the thing. There's an article. I don't know if it's great. I don't want to reward.
It's so desirable.
Wall Street Journal this morning published an article about Georgia saying there's a divided view on Governor Kemp's plan to reopen business. And this divided view is amongst business owners even. That's the irony. So I'll give you an example. My gym is eligible to reopen. I got a message from CYB Fit Lab. And if you guys didn't see, Wale Weeks, who is an Atlanta fitness expert, he came on and did a supplemental interview with us last Thursday night, kind of a cocktail hour style. He's an extremely talented trainer. He's got a great personal training studio in Buckhead, and his staff, all of the trainers and him, voted unanimously to stay closed this week.
Smart.
So even though there is an ability to reopen, not all businesses are buying in to Brian Kemp's course of action.
And that's a good thing, and I think there's certainly some folks that need to clean up their act before they come back on the market, before they come back into business, because the regulation of what's supposed to happen is a much more highly regulated restaurant industry and a much more highly regulated, almost, let's say, self-regulated. There's going to be an expectation of cleanliness and distance and COVID-19 antisepticness, that you're just going to have to expect, or else people aren't going to want to eat at some of these restaurants. People aren't going to go to some of these bowling alleys.
So, yeah, I have mixed views on it. I think better safe than sorry.
Yeah.
I think that even though it's really bad for business to be closed, I expect in the next 30 days it'll be more appropriate to open up on a more wide scale. There will be certain things that don't come back for months, though. I mean, restaurants are not coming back in the next 30 days. A couple of folks I know in that business probably think more like June or July.
Yeah.
And then of course there's pro sports. You and I have talked about that. That may not come back for a long time because of the amount of people that have to gather, unless it's empty stadiums. So anyway, on a local Atlanta level, Lee, tell us what are some of the coronavirus updates, not just statewide, but on a local level that you're hearing. You had mentioned something about Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms earlier.
She certainly has a skepticism about, she's like accepting that it's a statewide decision. However, she wants to approach it with more caution, and she's encouraging a lot of higher levels of regulation. But it starts with a council that she's forming. It's headed by a guy who had a ton of experience with the influx of folks who came in to Atlanta from New Orleans, and she's like he is like her chief operations officer. Okay, he's leading this, and then there's all kinds of constituents. It's everybody from the United to the Falcons to the Braves to the Hawks to the Grady Hospital System to the Emory folks to the colleges to all every single group of a Chamber of Commerce, Central Atlanta Progress, you name it. They're going to have some sort of council. Now, the schools. You name it, those homeless outreach programs, all of them have to come together like what's open, what's not open, what's safe, what's unsafe. They're going to have to regulate this at some level, very much like I said, self-regulation. And it's certainly going to move slower, I think, than maybe the governor wants it to move. And I bet it moves slower in Atlanta than it does some of the smaller cities, right?
Just yet another committee.
Yet another council, Jason.
Council, right?
It's a council.
How is a council different than a committee? Is it like a cooler, more elevated version of
committee? Would come from the word common, And counsel would come from the word counsel or education, right? Think about that. Countenance, which is your head, your thoughts. So it's more of a thought-provoking group than it is a committee, which is a bunch of people yakking in common.
They're coordinating.
Yeah, that's just Lee Taylor's definition.
Okay, well, no one ever said you could not be educated in a wide range of topics on due diligence.
Nobody ever said that, and they never will.
Nobody ever will say that.
No.
So, okay, fair enough. There's going to be a lot of, I think it'll be interesting to see how the numbers change, if they do, as we slowly open up. We're also a warmer weather state. There's certainly been a trend of warmer weather areas of the country being less affected. Nobody can deny that.
I haven't noticed that. Okay.
Yeah, the most infected areas have been colder regions.
Okay.
Now, I think there's other factors there, like density in New York, right?
Sure.
But overall, it'll be interesting to see how this reopening is affected, or how it takes effect.
My theory is it's always been about the world travelers and the people who've been in the airports and moved around. I think that's where it originally got here, and it's about people who travel around the world. Ultimately, that's how it got here, right? We didn't have pangolin. We didn't have infested bat meat pangolin, coming to the markets of Atlanta.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of you don't exactly go to Publix and get pangolin.
Bat infested pangolin.
Can I get a pound of fresh pangolin, like at the Publix counter? Whole Foods will have it.
Give me the crusty part.
Oh. All right. Well, I can tell you how it did come in. I watched Frontline last night. You know Frontline.
It's a great
documentary series
program. Has been for 50 years almost.
So amazing. And
40.
They talked about Patient One on that Frontline documentary. He came in through Seattle, and he had come from Wuhan, and he didn't feel sick when he landed. And it was just sort of the spark that, and then they had all this interesting dialogue about how the guy had seemingly not been close to a bunch of people, and they tested like 10 personnel and 9 tested positive.
Wow.
And the medical staff at this Seattle hospital, which was very progressive and prepared, was just floored with how easily it had spread to so many people.
Well, it's sad. That is so sad. I think the idea of, I when it comes down to it, there is a lot of conspiracy theory around this whole thing. And you go like, well, why did the city of Hong Kong or the city of Shanghai avoid...
Great accent. Hong Kong?
Hong Kong and Shanghai. How did those cities exhibit such amazing levels of keeping the what do we call flattening the curve?
Well, that's the power of the police state.
It is the power of the police state. I'm glad you said that. And it does say something about...
You can basically build blockades around entire regions of a country when you're China.
But it starts with intelligence, and it starts with what's coming, right? So I guess there's a level of conspiracy around, like, how did they get it here, and how did they move it around here? How did they do it, right? I don't believe it, but it's there, right? It's a very controversial way to think.
Right. The question is how drastic do you need the measures to be effective?
No kidding.
And on that note, I just took a sip of bourbon. It was delicious, and I'd love to talk about real estate.
Let's talk about real estate.
So let's start with Lee Taylor's new weekly In Town Atlanta. Should we have like some sort of jingle or spot, like In Town Atlanta Index?
The In Town Atlanta Index. And this is what I've decided after looking at 2 weeks worth. And Jason challenged me to go back and look 1 year ago, because 1 year ago on the Due Diligence Real Estate podcast, we said the best week of the year to list your house is the first week of April.
Unless there's coronavirus.
Right. And what I wanted to dig into is like what's moving right now, because the index really starts with right now and comparing it to the past. And I don't have the research done yet to go back to. It's harder.
Lee, let's just start with Let's just start with trend lines and what we're seeing for the week over week, and tell our customers something concise. Customers, listeners,
you'll like this.
Tell them something nice and concise.
First of all, look what I wrote on the side. I'm showing you a photo. I wrote that on the side of a house at Fletcher and McDaniel in Pittsburgh today with a blue ink pen. And here's the index. Okay, it says that last week the average pending sales price in Atlanta was $397,582. It's a little less than $400,000. That was about 274 units under contract. That's the moving average of what's actually gone under contract. Now you compare that to the average expired and withdrawn. These are the properties that fell off the market. That average was $475,904, which is 25% higher than the amount that's actually moving. So my point is, for buyers, there's a moving market. There's a bunch of folks, 274 or so last week, who made a purchase and their average purchase price was under 400. And then from there, the people who are failing to sell, those sellers, this is the message to them: get your price right. And the prices are off on average right now by 25% of what's actually moving in the in-town Atlanta market. The ones that are failing to sell. Failing to sell, you're 25% off on average.
Does that compare, or do you see any difference in trend there versus pre-corona?
I'm going to say pre-corona, and I guess it's half the amount, probably 10 to 11% off last year. But I'm going to do that research and get to you and tell you.
Are you noticing any significant changes week to week over your first 3 weeks of your index?
Actually, we had more units come on the market by about 110. So we had like 570 units, something like that, came on the market last week, where only like 460 came on the market the week before. So second week of April, the week of the 19th, actually the 12th through the 19th, okay, that week had like 574 properties come on the market in town Atlanta. Average price was, let me get that average price. The average price for the actives was...
Active means on the market, folks.
It was $421,000. So it's a little higher, like by 3% than what was pending.
So I think ultimately there's not a lot of data to draw any wild conclusions. I'm interested to see if inventory really starts to contract significantly in the coming weeks, and that might be part of our sort of feature segment, which we're hoping to make kind of a weekly event, folks, because we are here to interact with you, not just each other, because frankly, I just get tired of looking at you and listening to you.
Well,
I'm kidding.
No matter how engaging and delightful I may be, there are times when I might wear thin on you, Jason. I get it.
So, folks, this week we're going to, for the first time, start answering questions on the air from our listeners. And I think it's going to get really interesting because we're going to give the people what they want. So, Lee, tell us, you've got a list that we've collected from our new due diligence at Wieloch. Group.com email. And by the way, our new website, revised website, will be launched next week, and we'll have a form there where you can just go easily submit it, and you won't have to send a custom email in your Gmail account or whatever. So, Lee, what's the first question from our listeners?
First question comes from our client, G.
G
asks,
G-Dong, right?
G-Dong. What do you think about selling right now? And you kind of answer that question with a question to start. So I'll encourage you, Jason, ask the next question. What do you think about selling right now? Ask me a question, then I'll tell you.
If I was going to ask to elaborate, I would be asking myself, what does it mean to sell during quarantine, and how could that affect the outcome?
I think, and the bigger piece is like, what exactly are you selling? It's kind of what is the subtext of this is, what are you selling? And let's just give you an example, Jason. I'm selling a single-family residential house that's unattached, it's detached, here in any given market in Atlanta, from College Park all the way to Chamblee.
One of my colleagues at Compass, not on our team, another team, said this morning, and I think it was the right answer, which is, frankly, G, we don't know exactly the answer of what the outcome will be, because right now there's a lot of unpredictability. So we always like to make that disclaimer. It's a hard time to make that prediction. But if I'm selling... in general, I think that supply is going to not only remain low, but go lower.
Yeah.
So, ironically, it could help you.
Right.
If you're in the right submarket and at the right price point in that submarket.
I agree. And it's about following immediate trends, which is what I'm doing with the index. I want to follow immediate trends of what's moving in every single market. And if I'm placing something on the market in Pittsburgh, I've advised my client on a high price, on a come get it price, and on a frenzy price. You know what I mean?
Gee, I'd also beg the question, why are you selling?
Well,
what the objective is for selling many times dictates the answer to should I be selling right now?
Right. And I think we've talked about a few types of market movers. One would be the Airbnb superhost. The other would be, what was the other market mover we talked about? Condominiums in particular, I think, are an interesting market. That's coming up as another question. But that question for sellers is an important one, Jason.
What's our next question? And from who?
Next question comes from a Dorsey Austin agent named Teeny. I just met her today. I met her and she said, Lee, what do you think about the building moratorium in Grove Park right now? Do you think City of Atlanta might expand that?
Lee, tell everybody where Grove Park is.
Grove Park is the west side neighborhood next to the Reservoir Park on the east side, on the west side belt line. It's next to the English Avenue and Howell Station neighborhoods.
Is the moratorium specific to Grove Park?
It is specific to Grove Park.
Why is it specific?
Because of some of the gentrification issues that came up. Then that was the word they used. About people overdeveloping or maybe being maverick about what they were developing.
Right. And so I would answer with any moratorium that, or not any moratorium, but because there's a moratorium, which is essentially a stoppage of new permitting for a period of time, because they're trying to slow the rate of new development, my answer would be due to Corona, it could elongate such a moratorium.
No kidding.
Because the city is only doing things that are essential right now. In fact, just getting a permit right now isn't really something that's going through the city. The governor has allowed builders to use third-party inspectors for the interim that have the various licenses to inspect properties for permit. So not all the services are open. Her question is, how will it affect the moratorium?
No, her question is, what do I think of it? Do I think it'll probably stay that way for a long time? And do I think it might be expanded to other neighborhoods?
So this isn't really coronavirus related, is it?
It could be because of slowing down certain things.
I think moratoriums are always a possibility in rapidly changing in-town markets.
Totally.
Or any rapidly changing market. I know Brookhaven had one at one point if I can't remember the reason. But anything anytime there's rapid development, rapid change, gentrification in this case is a hot button issue, there's a potential for a moratorium. I don't necessarily to be or not to be made.
That's a very smart answer. Next question, Jason. Next question is about mortgages. Who can get mortgage credit right now and who cannot get mortgage credit right now? What are some of the restrictions you're hearing? And by the way, it's not the same for every bank. It's not the same for every lender. So talk to
W-2 income earners that have 800 credit scores.
800?
I'm kidding.
No way.
It's funny. One of our old team members, do you remember Haley, who worked for me before you came to the team?
I remember her, yeah.
So Haley contacted me from California last night. She's moved back home, and she was in the process of buying a home and asked me about a specialty loan program that I had spoken about to a client when she was working with us. She was trying to remember what it was. Well, my conversation with her sort of speaks to this answer.
All right, tell me.
Which is that anything that's a specialty loan program right now, let's call it super low down payment, like the 100% loan programs that they were offering for a moment in the last 18 to 24 months for first-time home buyers, bank statement loans, any kind of non-QM, which is qualifying mortgage, is that right?
Yes.
Which, for instance, there's special programs for people that are only 2 years out of bankruptcy or foreclosure. Any specialty product that's not a conventional FHA, VA, or conventional jumbo loan, a jumbo loan that follows QM.
For Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac.
Correct. Basically, throw all those out the window.
Yeah.
And everyone that's left that can obtain, that has W-2 or employment income, you're not a gig worker or independent contractor that needs to show bank statements to show income, you can show it on your tax returns. Those people will still be able to qualify, but the level of credit needed, credit score, will be higher.
And I don't think it's just 700. I do think you can still get loans if you have a credit score below 700. You just got to work with the right lender.
I've heard options. 640 plus is the lowest I've heard at the moment. But it was 600.
And I think this encourages a conservative way of thinking about what you're buying and how you're buying it. So if you were thinking you could get something easily for 5% down or less, it's not as easy anymore. However, it's still obtainable. You can do that if you talk to the right lenders. And I will say this, it's about FHA. It's about having an FHA loan, especially in the lower price ranges, under 400-something thousand. You can get an FHA loan in the in-town market. It's a good time to get one at today's rates. The other thing I would encourage people to do, if they can qualify, is look into down payment assistance programs. There's never been a better time for government largesse, Jason.
You used largesse last week.
I did. I'm using it again because it's a powerful word.
It means very powerful.
The outpouring of money love from the government.
All right. So next question. We've only have a few minutes left live here on the podcast.
Okay. So
how many more questions
My
do you
next
have?
question is from Lee Taylor. He's a listener and first-time caller. Lee Taylor says, Jason, can I hold an open house this weekend on Sunday? If I can have a tattoo parlor open, can I have an open house open?
There's no rule against holding open houses if you're a real estate agent. I don't personally suggest them. I think private showings that are safe. And
I agree.
Sanitized, and
secure,
safe.
Yeah. Let's come up with a triple S.
S.
Beyond that, I think it has a lot to do with who's qualified and who's not. We've talked about the 4 types of buyers. We've talked about looky-loos being the absolute most useless type of buyer, the ones who really aren't buying. We don't want them coming to open houses. We really don't want germs, we want as little germs as possible. And what we want is a qualified buyer who can finance and do a transaction.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yep. That's how it rolls off my tongue.
So, Lee, we're getting towards the end of the podcast here. Those are some good questions. I think 3 to 5 questions every week, minus the Lee Taylor call-in.
Oh, man, I love my question.
Cheating.
It was a great question because it matters if you have a fervent market in April. The one that's the month when everybody gets out to see houses is the month of April. They want to come to open houses with black balloons outside and, 2 to 5 on Sunday.
Let's move into Let's move into our final segment here on the Due Diligence podcast every week, extended due diligence. And Lee, what are your fire away quick thoughts and our final moments of today's?
Well, some friends of mine have received some of the SBA loans, and I think that's encouraging, and some haven't. One of my friends owns a restaurant, and they've been very successful in getting that. They're able to bring all of their employees back to work next week, all of them. And they're going to be working limited hours, and they're going to be working in 6 feet away.
That's awesome.
But at 6 feet under, stay 6 feet away, and you can get service right now. Coming up next week, they plan to do some very, very
That's
soft
a great marketing tactics.
Yes, it
6
is.
feet away at 6 feet under.
Exactly.
You should tell Tad that.
Well, he already knows it. They've already got those signs out, Jason.
Right.
This is something beyond my scope of work. I mean, they already thought
above
that
our
through.
pay grades.
They figured that out on like day 2.
Well, folks, I think I'll just comment on the bigger question that keeps coming up, similar to G's, which is, should I sell? Well, let's just say you should, or that you need to, or that you want to. I think the question should also be, what should you be doing if you are selling? And one of the things that we believe everybody should focus on, whether we are the realtors of choice or not, is what are the services that the agent will be rendering you to make it an effective sale. An unprepared listing for the virtual times that we live in will not be good. So make sure that you talk to your agent and consult with them about virtual services, such as the ability to schedule digital meetings, whether it's Zoom, FaceTime, whatever, for potential prospects for them to tour your home privately if they so choose. Are they able to put together a 3D tour of the home for somebody to interact and essentially walk through the home unaccompanied? I think this will be big in the future anyway, because it will help save time and energy for homeowners. What are the other resources that agent has in the video and media segment of their business that can minimize the need to get to the home unless they're super motivated? Then the last thing is, what is your agent's strategy for showings? What are you doing to make sure that we're not having 100 people walk through my home that aren't ready, willing, and able to buy? No looky-loos. No tire kickers. Serious, pre-qualified buyers.
Punk-ass pretenders.
Ask them what is their strategy. That is sort of my supplement to the selling question in extended due diligence.
That's right on. You're nailing it.
Any other thoughts, Lee?
Inspector-proof your house. If you're going to have it on the market, don't dink around. If you have a $5,000 problem, then you have a $25,000 problem in the mind of the buyer. Get your problem solved up front. Be proactive, which is the first step in the high-level effectiveness of being a seller. Be proactive. Be ahead of the market.
All right, folks. This has been another episode of Due Diligence, our favorite real estate podcast because we're on it. And I'm here with, give him some love. There he is. There's Lee Taylor.
Right there, baby.
And real estate expert, 20-plus year veteran, Lee Taylor, myself, 11-year-plus veteran, Jason Wieloch. We're going to be here every week, live, to answer your questions, talk real estate, talk Corona, talk whatever, and we're going to really have some fun in the coming weeks. Might even have some guests.
Yeah, let's have some guests.
Live here in studio.
Let's rock it out.
And until next week, find us on our page, Wieloch Group, Wieloch Group.com, our Facebook page, it's /Wieloch Group, Instagram, @ Wieloch Group. There's so many places you can find us. If you can't find us,
ain't nobody else named Wieloch.
I'm really concerned if they can't find us.
Ain't nobody else.
Ain't no.
It's that easy.
All right, folks, we will see you next week.